Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the legendary investor, Mr. Jonathan Twombly. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I laugh every time you say legendary. Maybe in your mind, yes.
You're a legend in my book. Well, hey, one of the things we've done a couple of times is I've shared with you my 50-year spreadsheet, right? We went through that, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. One of the pieces of data I was missing because I couldn't find it, actually a subscriber sent it to me, was actually housing transactions. Because one of the things that we will see, and we will pull it up again for reference for people who don't have it, is in the 1970s, interest rates went up 800 basis points, right? From 8% to 16% in 81. So right, from 74 to 81, they doubled. What I didn't know was what happened to housing transactions. So I can now say with pretty great confidence that I know when housing is going to crash, at least via transactions. Because the other thing we didn't see is housing actually never went negative in the 70s. So just for reference, let me bring it up so everybody can know where we're at.
Sorry, never went negative, meaning there was never. Okay, so prices never declined.
Prices never declined, right? Because that's what most people think, right? So again, here I brought the spreadsheet. You've seen it before. I think I've even sent it to you. It's in my free course. People can go get it. I'm not hiding this. But here's the data from the 70s. You can see housing started the decade at 24 grand. It finished the decade at 48 grand. And again, I'll just move this over. And then also interest rates started at 8. And as you can see, they got as high as 16. Okay. And again, here is housing appreciation. Housing appreciation through the 70s was fine, right? Home appreciation was up. It got soft, as you would expect, right? You take interest rates to 16%, you would expect housing to slow down, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it did. It had a lag, or a little bit of a lag, but it actually never went negative. The other thing you saw, and we talked about this last time, was, damn, who the hell was actually buying a home? Because it was unaffordable, at least on a payment basis for most people. This assumed a 10% down. Okay, well, good news. So remember 81 and 82. That's what we're going to look at. So let me stop sharing this because I only can share one thing at a time. And now let me bring this up. All right, so we now have existing single family. They call them one families in this report. Can you see this, Jonathan?
I can. Yep.
Okay. So what we can see is the total is in the left column. And you can see we started at 1.6 million sales. Just for reference sakes, we're doing about 6 million today. Throughout the 70s, it's going up, right? 77, 78, kind of cracks in 78, right, to 79. Lo and behold, like I said, look at 81 and 82.
Yeah.
So what happens, Jonathan, when interest rates double? We have less housing transactions. Housing transactions got cut in half from 78 to 82. Housing didn't decline in value, but transactions stopped, which makes total sense because nobody could qualify, right? Nobody's going to qualify with a 43 front-end ratio. It's just not going to happen.
So it is interesting, though, that prices didn't decline. And I'm assuming that's because people just held their properties off the market, right? I mean, like they weren't selling. So only people who were selling sort of necessity were selling, right? Because they weren't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just less people. And this was the land of creative financing, Carlton Sheets, and, all of those things. And you were doing, I don't know, just creative financing, right? You could actually take over a mortgage back then because they had assumption clauses, which they don't now. But yeah, this is what happens, right? You take interest rates up. The only transactions that happen are the ones that have to happen. A lot of people stay put, right? Because the whole argument about, hey, who's going to leave if you have a 3% mortgage and you go to 6? So again, when you want to know when housing crashes, at least on a transaction basis, double interest rates. That's my takeaway.
Well, listen, something very similar happened in the Great Recession, right? Like what caused that bubble to burst was the Fed raising interest rates to try to cool off the economy, and it worked. It just worked more than they thought it was going to work.
Yeah,
right?
that spark entered a timber of 50% adjustable rate mortgages with 2 and 28s and liar.
Right.
It was the spark that just set a forest fire ablaze or whatever.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, the interest rates did not double in that time, right? They only went up by a couple of points, I think. So, and that was enough to cause the whole thing, the whole house of cards to collapse. So clearly there was, like you said, it was it was the spark, but the tinder had already been laid in
Yeah.
the form of all these funky mortgage instruments and stuff, right?
Yeah. So again,
So-
I think there's a housing slowdown in the works. I think we've had the decade low for interest rates. I think rates will be higher. I don't know how much higher. The other thing to think about is, again, I like doing the math, right? So again, you go from 8 to 16, that's 800 basis points, right?
Yeah.
But it's only a double, right? 8 to 16 is only 100%. So I look at today and just assume 3% for easy math. What causes a similar crash? Do we go from 3 to 11, which is 800 basis points, or does it crack when we go from 3 to 6? Because those are very different answers.
Well, I think you could actually just do the math and figure this out, right? Because you could just figure out what the impact on the housing payment is.
Oh, yes.
Right. Because I think also, if you look at the home prices back in those days, I mean, you're talking about much lower home prices, much lower down payments, much lower monthly amounts,
Much lower income.
But the issue is the relationship of the payment to the
Correct.
income, right? So, I think it would be interesting to do that analysis.
I
And
think I will, now that you said that.
see
yeah.
like how much the monthly,
Yeah.
at these much higher levels of debt and much larger
Yeah.
debts, right?
Yeah,
that
I could
the
back
amount of
into
it-
these numbers. Yes.
Yeah,
you're
the
right.
amount of interest rate rise that would be needed to cause a huge spike in the payment is probably lower, given like
Actually,
how much.
I think I have it set up. I haven't looked
Yeah.
at this in a while.
It just
I
remind
think
me,
I've
can you
done
go
the
back
days.
there?
Yeah,
Go
of
back.
course. Of course.
So this red here, what is this? So payment percentage of gross, what is this?
Yeah, that was just the highest. So this is what mortgage brokers call the front end ratio.
Mhm.
It's gross income minus the payment.
Oh, okay.
percentage.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, we'll call this, I don't know, we'll blend this. What's the average? Actually, I have it. So the average is 41% of this 5-year period. So I think I can actually back into this. I have it set up.
Mhm.
How about that? So again, so let's say the median home price is 363. Let
Yeah.
me just make sure this is all right. Okay. So yeah. So, okay, we can do the math, right? So let's assume it. So if it goes from 3 to 6, what happens? Oh, look at that. We go to 45. That's the problem. There it is.
Yeah.
Because if it went to 11, it's got to be just nutty, right? I mean, let's just see. Actually, it doesn't go up that much. Why didn't it go up that much?
Yeah, but look at the payment amount though. Go back
Yeah.
to 263 or whatever that was. You can
Yeah,
see
it
the
was
payment.
2.63. Yeah.
So it's $1,300,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Just double it to 5.5.
Okay. 5.5.
So it goes up by $500.
Mhm.
Well, sorry, more, yeah, $500. I mean, that's gonna like take a lot of people out. But the interesting thing is the payment as a percentage of gross is still,
It's still okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Payment. So this is the one we got to watch.
Yeah.
Just,
So, I mean,
think
where is
so.
it that banks are going to start? It basically goes up to like 30, right? Before they stop.
Yeah. 33 is when they
33.
get squirrely.
Yeah.
So let's see. Let's just see. So 7.5. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Somewhere
But
in there.
this is also assuming a 10% down payment.
10% down payment. We're assuming a fixed home price, right? There's a lot of us, no income growth, which again, I think we have income
Right.
growth. A lot of assumptions here, but again, I think the answer is it's definitely not 11, right? It's
Yeah.
definitely not 11. So again, is it
So-
3 to 11 or 3 to 6? I think interest
Yeah.
rates go to 6%. We have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting definitely close. Also, if banks start saying you need a bigger down payment.
Oh
right,
yeah. The bank, as you
then-
know, banks get wonky, right? They can change
Yeah.
the rules.
So if they start saying you need a bigger down payment, then that's going to just keep a lot of people out. So,
And then again, you add on first time home buyer programs, which are 15 or 25 grand, which I think are part of this Build Back Better thing. That's going to take prices up. Because again, we assumed the 363 stayed flat. There's no chance that stays flat if we get more demand at the lower end. It's just
yeah.
not going to happen. So-
Well, listen, so speaking of a crash, what do you think about the fact that home prices have gone up at a faster pace over the last year
Mhm.
than any year on record, including the year preceding the crash,
Yes.
the last time around?
I
So-
think we have front loaded, like we've talked about many times, the pandemic has forced behavior that normally would have happened just in a shorter time.
Mhm.
So I think we're in for a real estate slowdown. I think we have a year or potentially 2 of below trend growth coming. That's what I think happened. And again, also being a numbers guy, what we also have seen is the normal distribution of transactions has skewed to the right, meaning the lower end has been cut off. And as you know, when you take out the low end and you have roughly the same transaction, the median shoots higher. So I think that's what's going on. So I think in sense, the 19.9%, which was reported by Case Shiller the other day, I think that's just front loading appreciation. I think we'll be at sub 4% by 2023 for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you've put your stake in the ground.
Always.
So when is this going to happen? When is it going to happen? When are interest rates going to rise enough to
that's the big
create the slowdown?
So that's the great question. Because again, I think we've hit the low. I think they're higher, but when and how fast is the big question. Right now, I can tell you, I think at the end of the year, the rates will be higher than today, which is only 2 months away. How much higher? Don't know, but they'll be higher. I think they will be higher the end of next December than this December. So I just think we're on a trend, and the Fed's going to do everything they can to make sure that that's not a steep curve, because that if it goes from 3 to 4.5 in a 4-week period, that will shock the system. That will take enough buyers out. Higher rates, if done at a slow rate, not going to make the economy slow down, because I think wages make it up.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like artificially low interest rates are not really healthy.
No, I agree. I think they're artificially low.
Yeah. So, and they've been, I think the Fed kept them low for too long during the Great Recession, and made everybody addicted to low interest rates.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it caused a lot of malinvestment.
Agreed.
And I mean, one of the things I think people kind of forget about interest rates is that when interest rates are really low, it encourages, well, let's say it discourages a lot of critical thinking that goes into investment decisions because interest rates are so low, right? So you have, and it encourages a lot of bad behavior, like, stock buybacks and stuff that are completely unproductive, right?
Correct.
For the economy. It's, when you have higher interest rates, it makes businesses really think about what is the most efficient, use of this money. Is
Correct.
it work? Are we going to make better than an 8% return on this investment if interest rates are 8%, for instance, right? So, whereas when interest rates are almost zero, it's like free money, and you might as well throw it at something, and like, who knows?
You just take a shot. You just
take a shot.
It's a casino. Yeah.
And it's not really healthy. It can juice the economy, but it's not, you're not talking about sort of long-term productivity gains, like long-term investments. So it's just sugar water for the economy.
I think there's been a lot of misallocation in our business, single family homes and multifamily, because of low rates. Yeah. So
and it didn't cause enough construction. It just caused a lot of it took the current assets and just buying existing stuff, just raising the price of what was out there, as opposed to really causing more of it to be built.
Correct.
Now finally it seems like more of it's getting built, but then I still haven't seen Ivy Zellman's video, but I've seen some summaries of it, and I mean, she's arguing that, well, it's not necessarily all getting built where it needs to be built. It's all getting built like in certain places. And this is, this was happening in multifamily for a long time. Years ago, at the sort of before it really started ramping up, say around 2016 with investor interest, 50% of the new apartments in the United States were being built in just 12 submarkets around the country. 12, right? And it was basically like, New York City, Austin, Texas, Miami, like a couple other places. And all they were building was like super luxury stuff, right?
Yep.
And so you wonder, like, what's going on now? She's suggesting it's the same thing. Like, all the housing is being built in the same places.
Phoenix and
and it's not necessarily where the housing is needed, right? So that could lead to localized.
Yeah, that's essentially crashes, right? I've watched probably a dozen, maybe 10 hours of her stuff here recently, and that's essentially her point. Is the hot money, white Wall Street money, is there's a herd even in Wall Street money, right? They're all doing build for rent. They're all going to Austin and Phoenix and Nashville or whatever it is, and they're gonna have localized problems. That's essentially what she's saying.
I mean, so I hear oftentimes people make the argument that, well, Wall Street's doing it, hedge funds are doing it, therefore it must be okay. Right? And like, no, like
yeah,
the idea like, oh, these people are
that's
smarter.
the smart money.
Right. These people are smarter than you and I, and they wouldn't get involved in a bubble. Well, you should read the book Irrational Exuberance.
Yes, you should.
Which is just, if you're an investor and you haven't read this book,
shame on you.
Shame on you. And I need to go back and read it again, actually. But one of the really interesting things that's demonstrated in that book is Wall Street's herd mentality.
Oh,
right?
It is. No question.
The fact that Wall Street, because look, those guys are all human too. They are all operating under the same kind. They're hearing the same information that you and I are hearing, right? They're not privy to any kind of special insider knowledge, right? It's all the same public information that's out there that they're operating on. And on top of that, they've got serious CYA issues that you and I don't have, right?
They do not want to lose their job. Yes.
Yeah. And the way that the CYA works is, if they go out on a limb and they say, I'm going to go invest in this place out here because I've noticed, like, hey, look at these demographics, they look really good, right? And something goes wrong and they lose money, well, then it's like they're on the chopping block, because why did you go invest?
Why were you that guy?
Right.
Yeah.
Why were you that guy? If you go and you like invest where everyone else is investing and then you lose money, because the market crashes or whatever, it's like, well, look,
we were all there.
Everyone else was doing it. You can't blame me for this, right?
Agreed.
So, and that's how like guys on Wall Street can continually like screw up and never pay any consequences for it because of this herd mentality thing. So
agreed.
And that's why like nobody got punished for the great financial crisis, because it was all the same thing. Well, everybody was doing it. So like, therefore nobody's responsible. Right.
Yeah.
And so
crazy.
That's why, just because Wall Street's doing it doesn't mean that it's the correct thing to do.
Agreed.
Right. So take all that information with a grain of salt,
and order Irrational Exuberance right now.
Yeah. Buy Irrational Exuberance. And then, go do your own research has got picked up a little bit of like a bad connotation these days, but like go and look for the stuff that other people are overlooking. Right. Like,
agreed.
Like there are pockets of the country that have great demographics that where, it's a good time to be getting in before those places get even bigger and everybody else notices them. Right.
Exactly.
And there's always so it may not be that like it's cheaper. It may not be that like that there aren't other people buying, but there's going to be less competition because you have less of a herd mentality operating there, or fewer people. The herd is smaller, right?
The herd is smaller, yeah.
So you have, maybe
be early, be the leader of the herd, not the follower. Yeah.
Yeah, or it's just like go someplace where, like I said, it's a little bit under the radar, and and there's still opportunities to make money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun, Jonathan. How can people follow you and get part of your world?
Yeah. So join my free Facebook group called the Multifamily Investment Community. Just search it on Facebook and it'll pop right up. You got to answer a couple questions when you join, but then you're in. And if you would like to join my investor list, please Google Two Bridges Asset Management and fill out the investor form you'll find on the website. And then you and I will jump on the phone.
Very cool. Thanks, Jonathan.
Absolutely.